In other news, the world's top climate scientists say it's now or never if we want to avoid disastrous climate change, but drastic and immediate changes can save our planet. The United Nations IPCC has officially published its report looking into what the world needs to do to halt the impacts of global warming before it's too late. Ebony Bennett from the Australia Institute joins me now for more on this. Ebony, lovely to see you as always. Now, the message here is clear. It's now or never. But the message has been the same now for a few years to come. Why hasn't anything changed?
Well, there's a whole host of reasons for that, but I think the head of the United Nations, António Guterres, was very clear that this report details files of shame, essentially, that countries and companies have been making empty pledges that essentially aren't going to be enough to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees and to avoid dangerous climate change. And he really did call out countries like that of Australia who are expanding fossil fuels as dangerous radicals. So I think this is a very clear message to world leaders that we're absolutely going in the wrong direction. We're not accelerating the path to clean renewable energy fast enough, and we're still investing in fossil fuels, which are the cause of all this damage. A country like Australia, for example, is spending upwards of $11 billion every year subsidising fossil fuels and continuing to expand that industry, which is the cause of all the damaging, more intense, more frequent, extreme weather that we're going to see if we don't limit global warming to 1.5 degrees.
Now, while climate change is critical, we ultimately need everyone on board to be able to make a substantial difference. So if the current messaging isn't working to get people on the same page here in regards to government, politicians, businesses, something needs to change.
Absolutely, it has to change, and it has to change democratically. Essentially, these all have to be democratic questions. We obviously don't have to reduce emissions. There's nothing that says that we have to, but the consequences for the globe will be catastrophic if we don't do so. So this report outlined that the solutions are all there, and what's more, there are lots of co-benefits for society if we do go down the clean energy path. So things like energy efficiency, renewable energy and storage have dramatically decreased in price. They help put downwards pressure on electricity prices, for example. As well as cleaning up the air. So there's huge health benefits, there's huge economic benefits, as well as huge environmental benefits. But it's very clear that leaders aren't doing what the public knows is necessary. And as the United Nations Secretary General said, there's just a huge gap there between what is being promised and what is necessary. And we have to peak emissions by 2025 and then provide deep cuts every decade afterwards if we are to avoid dangerous global warming. That's just not what's happening fast enough at the moment, and we have to hold our leaders to account if they don't follow this path, because ultimately it's going to be towns like Lismore in Australia, which saw an unprecedented flood of over 14 metres that swamped the whole town. Not once, but twice within a few weeks. And we now know that that's not going to be unprecedented. That is now the future for many cities, towns all around the world. Extreme weather events, extreme flooding, extreme storms, all of those kinds of things are going to happen with more frequency and intensity unless we do something right now.
But despite these dire warnings from the IPCC report, despite those weather events that you're speaking about there, nothing is really changing. But why? What more needs to be done to convince people at the highest level that we need some form of change here? Surely this isn't still a debate here.
It's not a debate, but the primary drivers of climate change are fossil fuel companies, and they still have huge sway, huge influence, and huge profits at their disposal to help prolong the longevity of their industry. The United Nations has been very clear that we have to phase out coal as soon as possible. We have to reduce methane pollution from gas by a third as soon as we possibly can. But we have countries and governments that are captured by fossil fuels, who are driven by preserving the profits, essentially, of extremely profitable industries, without looking ahead to the future for what those possibilities for their economies might be in renewable energies, in energy efficiency, in advanced manufacturing, green steel, those types of new industries that we know we're headed towards, and indeed in our society as quickly as possible. There's actually huge benefits for society if we do the right thing as well.
Ebony, thank you as always for your time, and your furry friend in the background obviously feels as passionate about this as you. Thank you so much for your time as always.
Thanks very much.